2 Point Museum is coming up on its 1-year anniversary, and in that time frame we've gotten so much content that has expanded the scope of the game. Seasonal updates, crossovers, and of course, DLCs. One of the most exciting parts of any game, DLCs tend to introduce new themes, new mechanics, and in the case of 2 Point Museum, new chaos. So today, we're not designing new museums. Oh no, we are dreaming big. I'm Ivory Toucan, and here are 5 DLC themes I'd love to see added to 2 Point Museum in the future. 2 Point Museum without an art theme honestly feels a bit criminal. It's one of the most requested DLC ideas I've seen in recent months across the community, and with good reason. Not only does it fit perfectly with the museum vibe, but there's also so much scope that can be done with it. We could have classic paintings with a 2-point studio spin. You could have portraits where eyes follow guests, which could fit nicely into existing themes such as the supernatural theme. Fantasy tapestries depicting the history of 2 Point County. Sci-fi landscapes that flicker to life as guests walk past. Or even massive sea battle murals showing the Wet Lanterns heroically fighting off pirates or some other otherworldly creatures. Crucially, this could also introduce wall-mounted exhibits, meaning layouts suddenly matter a lot more and you'll have to plan your museums more carefully too. But it doesn't just stop at paintings, you could also have sculptures and statues, think giant marble statues of legendary 2 Point County figures, abstract modern art installations that guests pretend to understand the closer they get to them, and general kinetic sculptures that break down spectacularly when maintenance is ignored. Alongside these new exhibits, there's also scope to add in new mechanics too. You could have the introduction of art auctions or trading between museums. This could happen like once a year, or you could activate it within a game menu like you have with the adoption menu with the latest museum DLC. You could also have maybe reputation-based valuation where the art actually increases in value the longer it's displayed and admired, which could then be a new attribute to max out. Art scandals and forgery events where artwork might be fake unless authenticated, and this could then introduce another new criminal underworld group. And of course, functional lighting items that can change the mood of a museum space and can be used for other exhibits too. Now this one is another obvious and often requested DLC idea, and as a history fan myself, it's one that I would absolutely love to see, and it would be an ancient history theme. But of course, it would be the 2 Point County history. With so many interesting civilizations to choose inspiration from, whether that's ancient Egypt, Greece, Rome, China, there's so much to explore that can be done in a way that doesn't really encroach on it being culturally insensitive in any capacity. This idea, while rich in potential areas and civilizations to explore, could really end up being a DLC similar in size to Fantasy Finds, where you would have a lot more exhibits but a little bit lighter on the mechanics. In terms of like exhibit ideas that could work nicely here, you could have the introduction of gladiator armor that would pair nicely alongside existing fantasy armor or Wet Lantern armor exhibits that are in the game currently. New ruins, which would work nicely again with the Wet Lantern ruins we see in the game. Archways, maybe even aqueducts, bathhouses for guests to enjoy and interact with. Ancient stone tablets with perhaps mistranslated text, linking to the space theme and the different glyphs we have there already. And then tapping into the more supernatural side, you could have like a cursed sarcophagus that could tie into the supernatural theme, which could then maybe impact your guests and museums as you put them into your spaces. And then in terms of new mechanic ideas, you could just keep it simple with perhaps civilization set bonuses for grouped themes that provide perks to either guests or museum staff in general. Or you could push it closer to the Fantasy Find side and have the introduction of mythical gods and statues that would occasionally perhaps cause miracles or disasters across your museum depending on the grubbiness level of the exhibit itself. Again, there's just so much scope for this one, but for me, seeing as it'll be heavy on the prehistory sort of front in that sort of general aesthetic, rather than fleshing it out as much as, say, Zooseum, it could be closer to Fantasy Finds. Keeping with the history motif, I think a separate modern history theme DLC would work wonders for 2 Point Museum because, let's be honest, modern history can be a little messy, which makes it the ideal starting point for 2 Point County. And instead of locking this one to one era, this DLC could jump across time frames, highlighting moments as far back as, our sort of 1500s, where the modern history generally starts from, all the way up to the present day, which I think is the beauty of this idea itself. It giving us lots of different subcategories that could span a longer period of history. It's also another chance to further explore and expand the lore of 2 Point County in a way that would just complement existing themes within the game too. So for this, we could see Renaissance or Tudor-inspired artwork or clothing that can be displayed, Industrial Revolution machines that would only help to boost the much-needed science category, military-inspired exhibits perhaps from a classic war that might have happened during the 2 Point County's history, 1950s classic suburbia, and even 70s disco culture. In terms of them fleshing this idea out further, we could introduce new guest types in historians that would grant exhibits knowledge instead of having to deconstruct them. Again, introducing a new form of gaining knowledge, which was seen in the Zooseum DLC. You could even have era conflict where certain exhibits clash and perhaps receive negative buzz when placed too close to each other. So you wouldn't necessarily place something from the 1970s with something from the 1500s. And this was one that I thought was quite a fun way of bringing the entertainment value to the DLC, where you could have reenactment events or special staff to specifically boost this, which would work obviously to boost the knowledge for children and then just provide that entertainment value. This could then be done in perhaps specific spaces, maybe a new room, or at least a general sort of plane where you can have, Renaissance reenactment fairs or something like that. This next idea takes things in a different direction, but really embodies the 2 Point style. Yes, this idea is all about biology and could provide a natural bridge between the likes of existing themes like wildlife, prehistory, and of course, science, the most underdeveloped theme currently within the game. If 2 Point Studios were to explore exhibits on the likes of ecology, evolution, and natural science, we could end up with some really interesting and fun ideas here. That could include the likes of giant interactive body parts. You think of like an inflatable lung that would perhaps wheeze when the maintenance is low and would then impact the guests negatively in that area. Perhaps multi-part dioramas of cells, molecules, and everything else in between. Taxidermy of extinct animals and insects throughout 2 Point County's history. Again, getting that bridge there between the wildlife and Zooseum animals to a new science-based theme. And perhaps a series of exhibits that is essentially an evolution timeline of the dawn of man, but with that classic 2 Point County humour. Mechanics here can push really far into the science side of things. Maybe have like hygiene hazards where germs from exhibits could break out if a biology exhibit isn't maintained, or just a general event within the museum that happens. And then you can also have the introduction of a science theatre-esque sort of thing. Think more around like planetariums where they have the educational movie screens. This could then help to boost obviously the knowledge of the children, but the entertainment value as well for guests throughout your museum. Last but not least, this one is somewhat self-explanatory, but still it's an interesting DLC idea that could easily be explored and bring new and exciting features to the game. This would be one where we get the full pop culture experience, everything from music, film, TV, and of course video games as well. It really provides an interesting opportunity to blend the existing digital exhibits that we've got from the Digiverse, which personally I feel don't necessarily blend well with other themes within the game currently, and also a chance to further expand out the lore of 2 Point County. You could perhaps go as far as creating a complete Jasmine Odyssey vinyl collection of all her greatest hits, movie props from the classic Roderick Cushion films, and other interesting exhibits that we've seen throughout the history of the existing 2 Point Studios library so far. But ultimately, it's a chance to really create a full entertainment wing of a museum filled with perhaps famed scripts as exhibits of classic TV shows, over-the-top superhero costumes on wax mannequins, comic books throughout the ages, and again, video game related exhibits tying into the Digiverse and digital exhibits already. In terms of the new mechanics this could introduce, you could have the addition of events that occur throughout your gameplay. By this I mean you might need to shut down sections of your museum from the public to accommodate a VIP guest coming in, or perhaps the latest blockbuster film needs to shoot at your museum, so you need to create the right space with the right conditions for them as an additional payment grant you can get. Other new mechanics could be star tours, where you try and attract and get endorsements from a wide range of 2 Point County celebrities that could then again fit to specific sub-themes such as music, TV or film. And then other ideas could include outdoor food trucks, outdoor picnic areas, and perhaps an outdoor amphitheatre for a symphony under the stars.
They're butchering the classics!
If you can't tell, I really do want some outdoor items added to the game. And those are my dream DLC ideas for 2 Point Museum. The game already has so much personality, but the potential for future themes is absolutely limitless, thanks in part to the creativity of the community and the dedication of the devs. But if you could pick the next DLC theme, what would it be? Let me know in the comments down below, and I'd love to see your other ideas too. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.